Welcome back to What the Flag. We are so excited to all be back together. I feel like there's a few different things I have to tick off really quickly. One, it is the anniversary of Blessing and I knowing each other and working with each other. So, shout out BK Creative. I can't believe it was 2 years ago. I messaged him yesterday saying that, and he was like, "Oh, I've gotten so much better since then." So, we're lucky that we've got the best version of you. And here's to more exciting elements of editing, not just the podcast, but all things basically just BK creative being an
We have to
absolute
find we have to find the first video. Put it out. Put it out. Show us the first video.
yeah.
What was the clip? What was it? What was the first filming?
Awkward. I put it out last night, so
Oh,
we'll
the picture. It's really
I'm so glad you guys really support me and watch my
The
stories. I'm feeling really
podcast.
good about our relationship
The
right now.
podcast.
Moving on
Wow.
quickly. Also shout out to Kenny for doing his first. I know that's a picture of us, isn't it cute? Kenny doing his first TikTok. Oh my gosh, now you got me all confused.
sorry,
Doing his
sorry.
first TalkSport event for the NFL Madrid game, a huge milestone. What was that like for you, Kenny?
It's good fun. Obviously buzzing that the first time was in the Real Madrid's home field, Santiago Bernabéu. It's a really trippy thing to do because obviously you've got the headphones on and there's like crazy noise in the stadium. But it was great to work with uh, Will Gavin, Simon Clancy, Tom, and those guys, and other girls. So yeah, it was a great day, great event. I don't I've got the clip, but I can't watch it back. So I don't know. We'll see if I can do that later. But absolutely fantastic experience.
What was the best bit about it for you? I mean, were you nervous? What were your feelings around it? It's a big deal to be on one of the top radio stations in the UK.
No, no, no. Nervous wasn't really it because I was essentially in safe hands. I felt like I was in safe hands with the guys, you know. So it was it was kind of easy that way. We were up in the eighth, like on the eighth, I don't know, floor level or whatever. Couldn't see the players' numbers for Toffee, and it's like I really respect when all the guys, you know, and we had it as well. There's guys who are sat there with like whole lists of all the players and their jersey numbers, and one guy had like binoculars, so he's like pointing at numbers on the thing so you can see whose name it was that was
A
in on the
spotter.
tackle or what, you know, all that stuff. So that's where, you know, I said it was really interesting to see a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but as always, I'm always looking to learn and develop. It's like, oh, this is a cool new thing to try and get better at and work on, which is good. It's really good.
Good. And then you had your first Spanish heir to the throne camp. So what was that like in Madrid? I can't lie, I was out there for 24 hours and the rain was intense.
Absolutely. Technically, a second international one we've done, if you counting Dublin being the first. Um, it does rain in Spain and not mainly in the plains. It was definitely like uh, cold and rainy, but super big shout out to everyone that still came out. Energy was high. I say Spanish people. As last episode, I said Spanish people don't like early starts. Today, Spanish people don't like the rain and cold weather, but they came out regardless, balled out, and it was really good fun. Really, really good fun. We're looking forward to the next ones already, but more than that, I'm looking forward to building these international coalitions of teams that are going to go on and take the world, which will be fun for later.
And then added on to this cool weekend, you then were recognized on field as well at the NFL game.
As well, that I mean, yeah, walk in. So the what? Yeah, from doing the radio commentary in the first quarter, then across to meet the team, because then we got taken down out of the stadium, back into the stadium. The actual pitch, you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. The pitch is built like below ground level, so that it's kind of like built into the ground, so that when you go out onto the street level, then you go back in and you go down again, and then you come out onto the field and well, electric. Like there's no other word for it. It was just like you're down there surrounded. It was 78,000 people. You know, and I said that, you know, because of work and different things, being pitch side at many, games, different fields, different stadiums, and each one is special. I don't think I would never be like, oh, this one was better or that, but first of all, it's Real Madrid. It's you're on the pitch. I was gonna cut up some grass, but I didn't. I was good. I left it alone. But yeah, it's amazing to be down there. They've got this halo screen around it. It's just all, just beautiful. Just a great thing to be a part of, and the crowd really applauded the girls as well, which was cool. Which was really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you were the whole game as well after that.
Say that again, sorry.
And you were there for the whole game after that. Like, how was
right back up to
the game?
floor 8 on the commentary again. So yeah, it was I tried to film it all. I'm not very good at that whole selfie filming stuff, but it was a really just a really cool day, really cool day, and one that will last in the memory.
And at the same time, so you did your Heir to the Throne camp. We had the Touchdown Trips, our amazing sponsor, MVP Travel, hosted their event. They do one before every international game. And that was phenomenal. We had 50 people there, which was so cool. The whole restaurant was rented out in Madrid, Amici's. They were phenomenal. Like the people, the food, everything, just getting to sit and chat with all these awesome NFL fans who some was their first NFL game, some it was, their X amount, or they traveled around the world to see it. So I always love learning about the different people, but that was the biggest group I've ever been a part of, where I was like, ooh, they're here to talk to me. This is so weird. But it was great with Michael McQuaid. We'll have to get him on because he is just friend of the show. He loves to support NFL flag and all things Ireland right now. Plus, he's being called out by Pat McAfee and JJ Watt on all of these shows now. People love McQuaid, so we'll have to get him to come chat to us. But whilst we were away in dreary Madrid, yes, man of the match every day. What is new with you besides for being alive?
Apart from being alive and being in freezing cold weather, nothing too crazy. I've just been living life. That's about it. Nothing too crazy. Netball was cancelled this week, guys, so I don't have anything to moan about, and I don't have any wins to report. The weather, so where I live, it was snowing. So we've been playing outside on the outside courts, which are the ghetto. We normally play inside, but we haven't been able to because we play at school. So we've been playing outside for the last few weeks, and obviously because this is our last week outside, the snow/ice meant that we couldn't play. So unfortunately, I have nothing to rant about this week. So, tune in next week for when we play a team called Net Chicks.
I love that. I do feel like you really held back by not telling us that you have been playing outdoors. Like, for anybody listening, if you're in the States, imagine just playing basketball in miserable weather at night. This is the dedication, I'd say, of British and European sports fans, that no matter the weather, no matter the circumstance, you're like, cool, do I get to play in a community group? Let's do it.
Yeah. And if I don't know how to describe the kind of flooring that you play on, it's not tarmac, it's some weird kind of, I don't know, asphalty stuff. It's awful. So you're just sliding everywhere. So even if it's not icy, which it obviously was yesterday, you're just trying to get the ball, and then you're getting called for travel because your foot just slipped. But that wasn't me. That was because the floor was slippery, and now you're saying it's travel. And they're like, oh, well, we have to call it fair. But that's not fair, because really you knew that I was trying really hard to stay still, and you didn't let me keep the ball. And I found out, weird, in basketball, obviously when you catch the ball, if you fall over, you can throw the ball. If you fall over, you just can't get back up, because that's when it's called travel. In netball, no. If you fall over, you must put the ball on the floor next to you and then get back up off the floor. You can't have the ball in your possession. I'm like, well, that's rubbish, because then someone's just going to come run and pick it up. And they were like, yeah, but otherwise you get called for a penalty. And I was like, wild. My mind is blown. So now if I
the
fall...
rules are the rules, yes. The rules are the rules. You can't.
Dislike. The umpires last week were really good, though. Shout out the umpires. I don't know if they listen, but I'm going to hand them my card and be like, hey, listen to the episode this week. I shouted you out and said you were really good umpires.
Do you do any kind of work in the middle of the or do you literally just meet the other players there and play? Is there any in terms of the netball team. I didn't mean you personally. I'm like, do you any work?
Well,
No.
answer to both is no. I'm joking. So we do. So last week, Terrell took it upon himself to become our coach. So we all got there a little bit earlier. Oh, for those of you who don't know, Terrell's my husband.
Let him know.
And we got there a little bit earlier, and there's like a court adjacent to the one that the team before playing on, and we were like, oh yeah, let's go and like practice some stuff, let's practice some passing. Anyway, Terrell was like, I was like, you can go wait in the car. He was like, no, I want to get involved. And then he was like, right, when you pass the ball, you've got to make sure your feet land like this. He was like, run to the ball and then catch it, and then pass it back to me, and then run back out, so you're working on getting into space. I was like, oh damn. And then he was like all hot and sweaty after. He was like, I forgot how hard work this is. Like, I was like, yeah, it's not easy, is it? And then this week I was like to him, before it got cancelled, I was saying to him, I was like, oh, if it's icy and it's raining, like you don't have to watch, because he comes and watches all my games. I was like, you don't have to watch.
Talk about like a supportive husband. Like, go on, T-Dog. Let's go. It's rally.
And he was like, well, who's going to be your coach to warm you guys up before the game if I don't get out of the car? I was like, okay, well, you can get out of the car then. And then he was quite disappointed it was cancelled, because he was gearing up for his day, ready to become coach. So there you go, Coach T.
Love it. Shout out Coach T. Amazing. So I want to kind of start us off today. Really, my head coach and friend of the show, Jack Reed, has reached out to just confirm some of our unknowns, essentially. And, we're here to just tell the truth. We don't want anybody having any misconceptions. So we want to talk about the qualification period. And then once we get even double confirmation, we will come back to you all and let you know. But this is what it, in theory, is right now. So 3 from the World Championships in Germany next summer will qualify. Now, we are unsure if USA gets a host position or doesn't get a host position, but basically it could be 2 with USA as a host, or 3 if USA doesn't have a host spot. The other option for step 2 essentially is 2027, the Continentals. So they'll lead to an early qualifier in 2028 to determine the last 3 spots. And that would be, maybe 8 to 12 countries. But it for certain is not going to be done by continent. So all 6 teams could technically be from the same continent, if that continent earns the places at the World Championship and the qualifying tournament. We also got confirmation on the tournament that went on with Panama. We love this. We love when people talk to us. We hope if anybody has other things that they want us to talk about or whatever, come to us, tell us. We love this. But the reason that the scores were so high, confirmed by, again, my DC, Coach Markey, he said there was a lot of pick 6s in the game. Now, my only argument to all those pick 6s, which were why the scores were so high, is just because you got an interception does not mean you have to run it back. Like,
Agreed.
you can just put yourself in different situations. Take a knee as soon as you intercept it, bat it down. We've done that before where you're like, game's getting out of hand. We don't have to make it into this massive game. But anyways, that is our learning, and those are our clarifications. Coach Kenny, I know you had something you wanted to talk about around the qualifications and what that means.
No, it's just good to have
qualifications. No,
it's good to have some, but it's still not transparent. It's like, okay, so that means, and I'm sure again no one is aware of this, that means that from 2026, the World Championships, 3 teams are going to qualify for the Olympics 2 years later, which is then, all right, so are those 3 teams then in the 8 to 12 team competition the following year in 2027? That following year will also coincide with continentals. So is there going to be, similar to this year where there was the World Games and then the continent, is it going to be like that, which is, again, not unheard of. So I think the one thing that has been clarified is that it's not just the winner of the Continental, because it's still not clear from what you read if USA then actually does get a host spot or not.
Yeah, and that is true. And then also to triple confirm here, the teams that have made it to the World Championship. So for men's, You've got USA, Canada, Panama, Mexico, and Brazil, which is actually exactly the same from the women's. And for kind of the rest of the world, you've got Austria, France, Germany, Great Britain, Israel, Italy, Switzerland for men's. For women's, Austria, France, Germany, Great Britain, Italy, Slovenia, and Spain. I think we are just waiting to get the confirmation on the Oceania Asia teams that have qualified. So that is all out now. This is the rent of the week. Kenny Bello, you are delivering the rent of the week. Talk to us.
So,
What's on your mind?
pet peeve today, not many days, not just today, many days. The time it takes between making a hot drink and being able to drink a hot drink is too long. And I don't know who to blame. I feel like it's the kettle companies. They make because you can't change the temperature of the boiling water. Like it boils and then or it doesn't. Or I've never seen a kettle where you can adjust the temperature. And I don't want boiling hot tea, but at the same time, I don't want to put cold water in my tea to get it to an appropriate temperature because that messes with the chemical infusion of the tea and the sugar and the milk in the water.
Isn't there like ideal temperatures for teas to be served at? And if it was served at that temperature, wouldn't it then be better? Like, it just depends. I think it depends on the tea, but isn't it like something like 70 degrees is like the ideal temperature to serve something at? So when I used to work at a school, right, there was this guy called Dan. He was the head of compute and he shared our office. And he had his own special coffee kettle. So he had one that he brought to the office that you could heat up to different temperatures. But then he poured it into a pressurized coffee kettle and would wait for the thermostat to change to like the optimal time. Then he'd like grind his own beans. He'd put it through like this vacuum thing and like compress it into his flask that he could take around school, because he used to say like basically it's like the optimum temperature for A, maximum flavor, and B, maximum efficiency, so we could have as many cups of coffee as possible during the day that were drinkable.
Oh my gosh.
How crazy is that?
I respect. What do you call it? What's his name? Computing Dan was his name?
Oh yeah, Dan the man.
Dan the man from computing. I respect it. That's the palaver. I want an easier solution to make my tea and it's drinkable straight away.
Surely you need a better like insulator that whatever you're putting your tea into or whatever, surely is not in the right vessel.
It does its job. The insulator does its job. The insulator keeps it at the temperature that it goes in for longer, which is I don't want it at that temperature in the first place.
Yeah, I want it cooler and then keep it at the cooler temperature.
But without putting cold water in.
But then there's always that fine line because you leave your tea a little bit too long and then it's cold. Like I've done it so many times where I've had a cup of tea like in the evening, I blink and I turn around, the tea is cold.
That's what the microwave's for, to be fair. I can always
Well, this cup is my favorite tea cup and it can't go in the microwave.
Can't go in the microwave.
The metal. So then I've got to change my teacup and also microwaves are
microwaving tea. That's another that's another.
That's the whole thing. Again, going back to the school example, the head of year 11, her name was Rachel, iconic woman, would make teas every day. We were the nearest office that had a microphone, that too, a microwave. And she'd come in and she'd like heat the same cup of tea like 3 or 4 times a day because she'd never have time to drink it. At what point do you throw away the tea and just make a new one?
That's the real tea drink. You don't make new teas. You finish the old one. You keep reheating until.
I think this is strictly a tea conversation because coffee, it's okay if it goes cold because you can drink that cold. Tea cold is not the same vibe.
Yeah, because you can have iced coffee, but you can't have like iced milky tea. Ugh.
I mean, in the States you do, to be fair.
Why not? Yeah, you can.
But there's like, you could drink coffee at any of those different temperatures. I wouldn't drink tea. You'd rather drink tea hot or cold, not in between. Lukewarm.
My peeve is just the time it takes for it to get cold. That feels like wasted time. Like I need that to go away.
Kenny pacing like this, looking at his teacup.
Literally waiting.
When can I pick it up?
But yeah.
If you have an opinion on tea, please make sure that you message us. It's vital to the success of this podcast, especially with the cold weather coming. We will keep you updated on Teagate. All right, guys. So there's always this conversation around scrimmage. You look at a lot of people, they just kind of rock up to practice and they just scrimmage, really. Or people feel like it's not a practice if you haven't scrimmaged. So I want to go deeper into this conversation around, Kenny, you said earlier, scrimmage is not useful, and elaborate.
I will tone down the extreme nature of saying it's not useful. Scrimmage is not the be all and end all. And I think the problem I see a lot with a lot of people and a lot of teams is they don't actually improve from scrimmaging. It's a lot of people who spend the week dreaming. It's the same as when, as a kid playing football, soccer, like you dream about scoring that volley from the halfway line, or you dream about, whipping that free kick like David Beckham. I can't think of any more recent players. I can't say Declan Rice, trash. Arsenal, trash. But yeah, sorry, strays. But you get a lot of people who show up at practice just wanting to fulfill those highlight plays, and the only time you can do that is really in scrimmage. But there's not, if more people turn up to practice with an intention of actually getting better, you can do that, and there would be more doing that outside of scrimmaging, I think. But I'm anti, like, you don't have to end every practice with a scrimmage. You just don't. It's not necessary. And as I said, it's fun to play and it's good. You're meant to like put what you've learned into practice, but people don't actually learn stuff. So you're just doing the same stuff over and over again, that you did weeks before, and you just don't see it. It's one of the biggest hampers to improvement, I find, or development.
I feel like sometimes it's used, I think you touched upon it for sure, but it's used as like a consolidation. It's like, right, this is what we've learned in practice. Now let's put it all into effect in a scrimmage. And I think it's all about working out what your priorities are for that week. I think at some point scrimmage can be useful, like when there's certain reps that you need to be taking, but position by position, I can't guarantee. I don't think it's always useful. And I think if there are things that your players need to learn, like I'm an O-line coach, so if there are things that my players need to learn in terms of technique and stuff, for me that will always come as a priority over scrimmage, because scrimmage is not useful if you're not blocking that person correctly, if you don't understand where you're blocking them, why you're blocking them. Like all of that stuff comes in all the stuff you do before a scrimmage. I would say if it meant, foregoing scrimmage because I get that extra time to spend with you working on technique and stuff, I would personally say that's better. But I guess it depends as well on maybe your time frame, what you're working with, and who you're working with as well, and how they've, I don't know, split up a practice plan, which can be challenging.
I think people are also not willing maybe to go away from the norm. I think people feel like, hey, we do indies, we do drills, we do all of this, and then the reward or the end is that you scrimmage. And I think that if using scrimmage in the right way can be a powerful tool, even from like a fitness perspective as well, situationally.
Yep.
That kind of controlled scrimmage can be really good, but I don't think people nearly get enough out of a scrimmage. I think a lot of times you just kind of let people play, but for me, a scrimmage should be challenging the players. It should be challenging the coaches. Okay, coach, what are you going to call on 3rd and 3? These sorts of situations. And I don't think that perhaps there's enough of that or enough of an understanding why or how to improve on that. I also feel that we probably, as a sport like flag football, don't do enough drill work to really have any benefit of a scrimmage. For me, I also feel like scrimmage, if we're talking about fitness perspective and like mental fatigue, football IQ, all of that, like you want to do that at the end too, to be like, okay, when you're deep in the heat of a game, how are you going to instinctually react? Essentially, all the drills that we've done, are you going to be able actually to implement them and use the right technique and tools that you've been taught? And so I don't think there's any like checking that along the way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you're absolutely right in terms of scrimmage being situational. I think there's many times where scrimmage is kind of like you just play like our offense versus our defense, and there isn't a real intention behind it because, again, it comes down to if the technique isn't correct, like there's not really much benefit, as an O lineman, me going against a D lineman who's poorly trained. There's no real benefit because there's no challenge, and I think the level of challenge needs to be there for both sides in order for you to actually benefit from a scrimmage. Otherwise, would it surely not be better to spend a bit more time refining what your position is, your technique is, your football IQ before stepping into that position? Because I think as well, if you're trying to say you're preparing for a game on one day and your practice is on another day, how is going up against, your defense that may need more training, or vice versa, your offense who may need more training, going to help prepare you for that game on Sunday, especially if the intention behind the scrimmage is not necessarily to prepare for that game on whatever day it is. It's actually to get film so you can sit down and watch the film to be better for the game. I think that intention in itself, like, are you trying to get better for the game, or are you just trying to get something out for film so I can just show you what you're doing rather than working on those? I don't know.
It's important to like clarify all that because you gave the example of like a good O-line against a poor, one good player against you would come up against that in any sort of competitive drill, not just in scrimmage. And that's what, you just have to manage that when it comes to it. I think it's also important to like take a step back and call out the fact that tackle is different from flag,
Yeah.
and because tackle, especially if we go all the way to 11s, it's very difficult to replicate the chaos of tackle, in quote unquote more controlled situations, right? So there's that element. From a purely flag standpoint, I've been a part of teams. There are teams now that I know for a fact when it comes to the scrimmage at the end of practice or whatever, offense starts on the 5-yard line where they normally start, and they're just trying to score at the other end. And then you get to the other end or whatever, and you turn around and you come back. And then, and it's just like there's no real purpose. Phoebe made the point around like situational, 100%. Like call 2 minutes, set an actual time. The time is 1:36. You got one timeout. Score is whatever. You're 6 down. You're 6 up. You're whatever. Like go for it that way, and that actually helps. But you also have to have people who understand and are able to get into and buy into the game situations. But ultimately, I think for many people, coaches, players, scrimmage becomes the proving ground. It's where you show that you're a good player or a good coach. And I don't think that necessarily needs to be the case. I think there's a space to work individually or in smaller groups to really refine and develop skills and grow that way.
But I feel like a lot of this comes down to I don't think enough people, and I know I'm putting a blanket statement out there, know how to practice in general. I don't think they understand the intensity, the urgency, the like literal just organizational side. I feel like we could do so much better from how we put together a practice plan and take advantage of time and repetitions. And then I think you look at individuals and, to Yaz's point, yeah, you're going to go against players that are not as good, but okay, let's say you're scouting someone and you need practice squad. Well, if practice squad is being whomever your opponent is, and they're not up to a certain standard, does it even make sense for us to be doing that? Would you rather just have your ones in and have them run the playbook or whatever to the fullest level? Because it's, I think whether it's tackle or flag, a lot of times that's why we enjoy going up against the men's team, because ultimately they're going to run it faster, they're going to be bigger, they're going to be stronger naturally. And so that kind of keeps you on your toes and has to allow you to go full speed and really hone in on those techniques against other opponents. So I guess it depends on who you're with, what your situation is, what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And then, so, well, my question from there would be like, obviously you gave the example of like going up against the men's team. But Kenny did mention, and he's right, that flag and tackle are so different in their respective sort of like how you'd structure it versus what a scrimmage would be. Like, apart from, say, going up against the men's team, how would you structure like an effective like scrimmage if it was what you had to run at the end and you were in charge of it? How would you like structurally put that into place for a flag team in order to get the best out of it for them?
It depends where you are, I think, in literally in the season. So we've given examples of already you've got particular opponents to play. So it could be, I think to make it really useful, it's not just most teams, the defense you play the most is the defense you don't face regularly, if that makes sense. Like, so if Team Spain, women, as an offensive coordinator, we face the Spanish women's defense often, but not many other teams run the same defense that the Spanish women run. So so there's no point us running our plays against them running their plays because there aren't many. I like to think there aren't many offenses that run the way we run, right? So
You're just playing to beat your own defense, which doesn't
is
help.
pointless, but it's not pointless because maybe there are things we see that I can maybe help the defensive coordinator with and say, hey, check this space, there's that, there's this gap that we see or this potential weakness, whatever, and he can do the same for us. But I think more deliberate scrimmage is in and around, coach, these are the defenses I need to see because these are the defenses we think we're going to see from, and vice versa. These are the type of offensive plays we need to practice against because this is what we think we're going to see. It's situational stuff. It's understanding there's an ongoing constant argument about if it's between first and third down, do you try and get out of bounds short of the halfway line to give yourself a bigger chunk when you make that pass into first down territory. Whatever the decision is, being in a situation to practice that is important. But that's what I'm saying. Most people's scrimmages aren't even game-like. So there are so many opportunities to be learning different bits that people miss out on. And that's my issue with it. You're coming to practice for not for the wrong reason, but for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I think it depends on your philosophy as well as a team, right? Like what you believe in. But I think I would personally look at what do we face the most as, let's say, if you're offense or defense, like what situations are you in the most? You're probably not very often in NFL, sorry, in international, like IFAF rules, you're probably not very often on like the 1 yard line going into the end zone. Like that doesn't a percentage rate on fourth down, for example, like that's kind of a more rare situation, but we've been halfway point with like 1 or 2 yards to go. And so like, where do you prioritize what play, what situations to be practicing? I think it's important then to, most people go for 1 point, but like when do you practice 2 points? Again, like the time scenarios as well, like no huddle. Like I think there's things that you want to try and get in there that you maybe don't think you need right away as well. So I do think it's philosophy, like whether it's to Kenny's point, short lining. Some coaches believe like, hey, first and second down short line, but don't short line on third or fourth, third down, sorry, because you're then putting yourself in a tricky situation. So I do think it has to be a bit of a collaboration ultimately.
I mean, I'll ask this question, but I feel like I already know what Kenny's answer is going to be. So, how would you feel? You're in a scrimmage and it's OVD, offense is losing, and then they run the craziest trick play against your defense. How do you, as a coach, feel about that if you are DC?
Me as a defense, but I think first of all, and this is where I challenge it, like, how does O lose a scrimmage? If that makes, or is that you saying that's the situation?
I'm saying that's the situation. Like, so, when you get to that point in like a scrimmage, so we're probably at the point where we're talking more contact now, right? But when you're in that situation where it gets really competitive between OVD, offense hasn't managed to score, it's the end of the period, like practice is going to end, and the OC comes out with some wild play that like, they're like, you do this, you do that, you do the other to score against the defense. How do you feel about that as a coach?
Would you not call that in a game if you're losing? You're like, we got to win somehow.
I mean, I agree, but I've definitely been in some practices before where coaches have been very annoyed at the fact that offense have just like tried to run some tomfoolery against the defense. Now, personally, I think that's the equivalent of just running the Hail Mary, right? Like
Well,
you want to
but
win
I'm
by
saying,
any means necessary.
if you're making something up on the fly to win a scrimmage, what a waste of time. Do you know, like that's not useful. But in the bronze medal game against France, we ran a flag version of a hook and ladder, right, and scored a touchdown on it, right, which we had installed that play and practice, you know, so that I think there's a fine balance between having fun things in practice to do things that keep people excited, engaged, whatever. And there's a difference between that and, as you said, like just tomfoolery. Like if we're doing stuff that we would never do in a game, we're wasting everyone's time, offense or defense, you know?
Yeah.
And I've seen stuff where it's like, hey, all of the O-line lay down on a weird screen random play, you know? But it was like, but you would never do that in a game. So what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Do you know?
I
And
think
that's
it has to be realistic if you're going to do it.
exactly, and that's what I'm saying to you. If it's a play that you would actually try and use it, because Kansas City Chiefs a couple of years back did that ring of roses thing, ring of rose, like where you're, if you'll do it in a game, do it in practice. You know, yeah, perfect. But if you'd never do it in a game, don't do it here. Don't waste time. So that's all it is for me. I'm like, if it's realistic, go ahead. If not, then. But also, coaches getting hyped on winning and losing scrimmages, like.
But that's also being reactive in the moment. Like you feel you might have won something, but that doesn't mean that your players executed, you know, to the highest ability. So I do agree with that. I think the last bit we just wanted to kind of shout out quickly was basically Flag Football Canada on their amazing new hype video they put out. Like got all of us excited. I know they've been doing a lot of work to also try and get funding. Kind of crazy to think that one of the, best men's and one of the best women's teams across the world still doesn't have funding. So make sure you go check them out. They're doing lots of fundraising stuff. Get involved. And for now, thank you all for tuning in to What the Flag. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bell, and send us some messages. If there's something you want us to talk about, we would love to. And we'll see you next week for more What the Flag.